Airship.
Hey, greetings, loyal airmen, and welcome to a new episode of the Airship 27 podcast, number 51. And joining me as ever is our loyal, diehard chief engineer, Rob Davis.
Well,
How's it going, buddy?
Die hard. All right. Well, let's get the advertisings out of the way right off the bat here. So I'll go ahead and read this. We are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network. You can find every episode of Airship 27 podcast on comicpodcast.com each month. You can also find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Comic Frontline, YouTube, and of course, Zone4Podcast.com.
Oh,
And there we go.
There you go. Hey, I thought the feedback for episode 50 was rather positive.
Cool.
Yeah, people were all surprised. They thought I was a lot fatter and taller. Your voice doesn't sound like what you look like, that kind of thing.
Oh, yeah. Well, you never do. It's like when I first got on the internet, I was on CompuServe, and there were several people that I had regular conversations with, and I was just typing. There was no graphics, no nothing. And I have a very vivid visual imagination, so I had pictures of all these people in my mind. I actually met them. None of them were even close to what I thought they looked like.
Of course not.
Yeah, what was in my head was completely off.
Right.
So
you cannot judge the body
no.
ever, which is way too funny. And speaking of those kind of things, I've got to tell you, amigo, okay, the way we ended last episode with your little history of the theme song, I told you I went to YouTube and saw Johnny Cash singing the song. Okay.
Yeah.
And before he does, did you see it? Have you seen it?
No, I haven't seen it in a long time.
He explains why. Which was because his mother used to sing it to him when he was a child.
There you go. Go. Yeah.
So it was to her, he was singing it, which seems rather apropos us, stepping in here a couple days after Mother's Day. All right. Which is why Cash covered the Airship song.
Yeah. And speaking of, after that episode, I went to eBay. And I looked to see if maybe they had the sheet music.
I
bought it.
That is so cool.
$11, 1905. It's a 1905 pressing of it. I love it. I'm thinking of having it framed to put on the wall or something. I don't know what I'm going to do with it yet. But yeah, that was pretty cool.
Well, we could always make up copies, and bring them to cons. Join along with the Airship 27.
It's out of copyright. It's
you know what?
It's in public domain. We could
to put a little bouncing ball. They can sing along of every. Hey, while we're in this lighter than air mood, it's time for the monthly joke, and you have the pleasure of kicking it off this month.
I'm up to bat first. Okay.
Go get him.
Well, all right. Okay, a family from the Ozark Mountains, a husband, wife, and son, travel to the big city for the first time in their lives. They visit a shopping mall, and while the mother is shopping, the father and son are standing in awe in front of an elevator, having no idea what it is. As they watch, an elderly lady walks into the strange silver doors and then the close. The father and son go up and then back down. When the doors open, a beautiful young woman walks up. The father leans over and whispers to the son, "Son, go get your mother."
Ooh, all right. Okay, to all our loyal lady listeners out there, that joke does work the other way too. It can
Oh,
work both
absolutely.
ways.
Yeah. Yeah, I could have flipped that. Should have flipped it,
Easily.
actually.
Right, right.
Yeah, yeah.
Good
For
joke,
Mother's
good
Day, I
joke.
should have flipped it.
All right, and so the rest of you are going to have to wait the next 40, 45 minutes before you hear my gem of the
Oh
month.
boy.
Oh yes, okay. I tried it on Valerie. She held her nose and said, "Oh, that's awful." So
Oh, okay.
others, thank you. Here we go.
Something for us all to look forward to.
Hey, we're gonna stretch our agenda a little this month because things have been kind of slow around the old hangar, but we still
Yes.
have some things to talk about. And I'm gonna pick the
Sure.
first agenda, which is basically the awards are finally delivered. Hallelujah.
Yay!
We are really happy to report that since our last episode, the final two Pulp Factory Awards have been safely delivered to their recipients. Ed Carter received his for Best Interior Illustrations and Ted Hammond for Best Pulp Cover. Sorry it took so long, Ed and Ted, but alas, sometimes the term snail mail is most fitting. Okay. And, and
Absolutely.
and I want to thank Ted Hammond for snapping a picture of himself holding it. I posted it on our Facebook page, on Airship 27
Yeah,
Facebook
I
page,
saw that.
and maybe Brant will include it with the show notes as well, so people will get
There
to
you go.
see it.
Yeah.
Okay, and then that's it. That wraps up this year's official Pulp Factory Awards. Again, to all you loyal airmen out there, another plea as we did the other day, if you'd like to get involved with the awards, be a part of them, help us nominate and vote, then by all means, either get a hold of myself or Rob. It's real easy to do, no
Yep.
dues, no obligations, and we'd really like to have you as a part of the crew. So there you go.
Yep. Absolutely. Okay. So I guess I get the next one here.
Yep.
A new special Facebook page. Last week, writer Bill Maynard sent Ron a message on Facebook suggesting we create a special Facebook page for our best-selling series, Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective. Whereas it is indeed our most popular series, the idea of having a page dedicated to that series and all things Holmes made perfect sense to us, and we were only too glad to take Bill up on his suggestion. Last weekend, I set up the page and christened it with the series with its own title, Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective. I mean, what else could we call it? Please, if you are on Facebook, check it out and hit that old like button, please. Obviously, we are going to use this dedicated page to preview all things Holmes and Watson. So once again, thanks for the great idea, Bill.
Right, a tip of the pulp fedora to Bill Maynard, our good friend, and
Yep.
it's that again was one of those that when I read it, I went, "Duh, yeah, duh,"
Yeah, and
because
then get Rob to do it.
you know,
Well, I had all the images to throw up there, so that was the thing to do.
that
I
was the idea, and
Yeah.
I loved how you did the background, everything involved. Again, just so people know, Rob and I are the administrators of the page. But if you have
Right.
anything at all you would like to post on that page related to Sherlock Holmes and Sherlock Holmes fiction, either send it to
Absolutely.
Rob or me, and we'll gladly put it up there. All right. Artist Graham Hill had done that wonderful painting of Dr.
Yeah,
Watson.
just saw that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and he got a hold of me and said, Ron, would you mind posting this to your page? I was only too happy to post it. It's a gorgeous painting. It's one of the best things he's ever done. And people don't remember, Graham had done the cover to Consulting Detective number 10 a while
Yes.
back. And
Yeah.
it's one of the few that only has Holmes. It
Right.
has him sitting in his room in his easy chair smoking a pipe. And
Right.
so I think it was later, apparently, Graham must have had the itch to do Watson as well, because then he went and did that beautiful, beautiful portrait of Watson, which is absolutely gorgeous. So, not missing an opportunity. I also suggested to Graham that maybe someday we can twist his arm to do another cover for us. So,
Yeah, and have both of them on there.
yeah,
Yeah, that'd be great.
exactly. Yeah, we'll see what happens. Okay, hey, look, I have been doing a lot of traveling lately, so this next section is going to take a bigger part of the hour as it is. But these were a couple of shows that I wanted to talk a little bit about, and I'm sure a lot of you will identify with it, especially other creators, writers, and artists who do the convention circuit like Rob and I do every year. So here we go. Traveling the con circuit. With summer around the corner, the convention circuit is in full swing across the country, and nobody is more aware of that than yours truly. In the past 2 weeks, I've made two guest appearances at two radically different events and enjoyed both of them greatly. The first was being a guest at this year's Denver Comic Fest. Now, the Comic Fest itself is part of the larger Star Trek convention called Starfest. That's been going on in Denver for well over a decade now. And then what happened was a few years after it got going, somebody suggested, why don't we bring in some comic people? So it became like the kid brother to Starfest until eventually they tagged it Comic Fest. Okay. So since then, like I said, it both shows are a lot of fun. And last year, my wife Al and I were invited down to be guests, and we had a blast. It's easily one of the best conventions I've ever attended, and that is due in large part to their staff. And as Rob will, I know, echo my sentiments here, shows are only as good as the people who put them on. And trust me,
Absolutely.
when
Yep.
you've got volunteers who know what they're doing, who know how to take care of the guest, who answer questions, who take care of upset fans or whatever, then
Yep.
the show runs smoothly. And that's one of the gems of Comic Fest. Their staff is absolutely amazing. So hats off to them. Okay. It was a great show. And aside from yours truly, again, remember, like I said, we're the kid brother here, right? They actually had William Shatner. They had, what was his name, Ben Browder from Farscape. The Science Fiction Con had all these big games. Nicole from Star Trek was there.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and God bless her. She was in a wheelchair all the time at the show. All right.
Well,
Yeah,
we're getting
hey,
up there.
yeah, it does, and that's a reminder. But so gracious, okay. I mean, I saw her talking with fans in the lobby in the wheelchair, and they were like being very polite, not wanting to rush her, but you could tell she just enjoyed meeting people and having a good time. So God bless her for coming out and enjoying the festivities. Now, the comic part of this, as I was talking about, had a lot of local talent, Rob. A lot of people from Colorado and Wyoming came down, writers and artists, some people that you've met in the past. The major guest, if you will, was yours truly, writer Mike Barron and Dave Ross. Okay,
Yep.
artist Dave Ross, who up until this time I had never met. And so as it turned out, Dave and I ended up on two panels together, which were basically little small things. On a Saturday afternoon, Dave and I did a panel on working on licensed properties.
Oh.
Okay? So, I mean, he did a lot of that at Marvel and DC naturally. And of course, I did Terminator and Green Hornet for now. And I have to tell you, Rob, I mentioned, he said something that echoed something you had told me a long time ago about your experiences doing Star Trek. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Which was, he was talking about how when he was given books that were based on TV shows or movies, right? The editors would
Yep.
sit him down and say, okay, so this cast character is okay with you doing their likeness. Okay. But this cast character doesn't want their license. The agent says no way. But you still have to draw somebody who's that character in the comic book, but just don't make him look exactly like that actor or actor. And yeah, right. You know that
Yeah.
feeling, don't you?
I know exactly. I know that exactly.
Yeah.
Like drawing aliens for Star Trek. If we had to draw something that hadn't shown up on the show, we had to run it past them. So I eventually figured out, well, okay, well, what we do is we'll make them choose. I would come up with 3 different ones and send those in.
There you go.
And then they caught on. Because one time I got back and think, okay, we want you to do this part of this one and that part of that one and put those together. We want you to do something. So they still stuck their finger in it.
Hey, okay,
Yeah.
so, yeah, right.
Hey,
And yeah, that's what he talked about.
it's
He
their
talked a
boss
lot
for
of,
playing it.
yeah,
You know.
he talked a lot about that and how it's not as easy as people think it is. A lot, I'm
Oh,
sure a lot of fans think, oh, they just give you photographs of the actors or actresses. No, 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 no. It doesn't work like that at all. So, anyways, that was the panel we sat on Saturday, and then Sunday morning we did a second panel, which was a lot less formal, which was basically an hour of two old duffers sharing their comic experiences in the business, okay? Which was fascinating because what I learned from Dave, again, just meeting him for the first time, he isn't doing much graphic work at all these days. He's teaching. I guess a little over 10 years ago, he's Canadian from Ottawa, and a little over 10 years ago, and maybe even longer, he was invited to this university in Ottawa to literally give courses on graphic and commercial art that are credited courses. So he's been doing that now for a long time, and absolutely loves it. All right, because again, it plays to his strengths and his backgrounds as a comic book artist all those years, and of course, most of the students he gets know his resume, and of course have visions of, hey, I'm going to be the next, Dave Ross, Neil Adams, or Rob Davis. All right, and the point being is, and you'll get a big kick out of this. The point being is, after a couple of years of realizing that most of these young guys had never either been to art school or had only learned to draw from comics.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. That he was basically falling back to teaching basic sketching skills, which should have been part of his curriculum. So in that sense of need, over a period of a couple semesters, Dave went and made his own book. He actually did a book, all right? Freehand figure drawing for illustrations, all right?
Yeah.
Which now is part of the course curriculum, okay? After our panel, he says to me, he said, before you go back to your table, he says, come on over, I want to introduce you to my wife. His wife is holding down his table as Valerie was holding down mine. So I go over with him, right? And we're standing, he goes, oh, I want you to have one of these. So get this. Check that out. This thing is great. It is absolutely fantastic. All right. I took it with me last week to our local comic meetup with the group, because we have several young artists here, and I showed that thing off. All right, it's available. I want to tell all our loyal airmen that book is available on Amazon. If you have any interest in learning how to draw graphics, moving figures properly, I recommend you pick it up. It's very reasonably priced for what it is.
Yes, I checked it out on Amazon. It really is. It looks like a great book from what I could see of it on Amazon. So
it is.
Yeah,
it absolutely is. And and not even being an artist myself, I saw the value in the book, and I'm really happy to have it in my own section of comics and comic. I have Eisner's book, Rob. Okay.
Yeah, I do too. Yep.
Yeah. You and I have talked about this before. It doesn't matter if you're a writer or an artist. It's the same feel, the same creative storytelling. So one sensibility learning about the other only benefits the creator.
It's words and pictures. It's pictures and words. It's both. You can't have a real comic book without both.
I maintained all along, writers should take a few artist classes, just a few, to learn the language, okay, and to know how to communicate with artists. And
it can't hurt. No.
Artists in turn should take a few writing classes if they have the opportunity. All right.
Yeah.
It's the benefit of the projects you work on. All right. So that was, again, another absolutely great comic fest in Denver. And then Rob, I think I sold out half my inventory stock of comics. I'm not kidding. I am out of so many titles. We come back home and Valerie goes, you realize next week is free comic book day. And I went, oh yeah. All right. So here we go. Right. 5 days later, I'm at Griffin's Games and Comics here in Fort Collins. And I get there real early because I know that parking lot is going to be packed. They open the doors at 9 o'clock. Rob, I was there at 7:30. All right. Got in. Leanna wanted the store owner, Leanna Sherman and her husband, Sanders. Leanna Sanders and her husband Sherman run the store. It's a great comic shop. So I walked in and found out they'd stuck me right by the opening door, right by the front door. Cool. Okay. I set up my banner, I put my comics in, right? And I had told Valerie, and this is a true story, gospel truth, I had told her, well, after Comic Fest and doing the whole selling thing, the con persona, right? People come by the table and you go into sale mode and blah, blah, blah. I'm tired. It was a good con. It was successful. So I told her, I said, you know what? I'm going to relax at Free Comic Book Day. I'm just going to set up my table. I'm going to sit back. And if people stop at the table, we'll talk, we'll meet, blah, blah. Okay. That, honest to God, that was the plan. So I'm sitting there. All my other fellow creators from Fort Collins show up. They all set up their tables. 9 o'clock, they open the doors. By now, the line's gone around the parking lot 2 or 3 times. They open the doors at 9 o'clock, and right across from me, there's like a little aisle. They put a little barrier, and across from me are all the free comics that Marvel, DC, and everybody sent. And
Right.
the store clerks are working behind them. People come in, and they dole out, like, you can have 3 or you can have 4. And then they move them into the comic store itself, which is, that's what you want to do. They go into the main store, and then the Pat takes them around to some of the game rooms where other creators are located. They go all the way around, and as they finish that horseshoe, they come back to the exit where Captain Ron is sitting, right? And within 20 minutes, I've got people that I know, local fans who saw me last year, the year. I've done this for the last 8 years. Hey, Ron, what do you got new on the table? And all of a sudden, I'm selling. It didn't stop. I did as well there as I did, maybe almost better than I did at Comic Fest. It was insane. At 5 o'clock, some of my friends were packing up. I'm exhausted. I've almost got laryngitis because I've been talking all day. All right. And that's it. I start packing it up. All right. I got home and Valerie goes, "How'd it go?" And when I started talking, she goes, "I thought you were going to take it easy." I said, I tried. I really tried. All right. I had 2 empty boxes. Okay. Like I said, it's insane. All right. Thank
That's
God.
a successful show when you leave with empty boxes. Yeah.
No, hey, these people are great. These people are absolutely awesome. Again, you make a loyal following when you do this in your community. And you and I have talked about this, and I really hope next year you give some serious thought, because again, even not selling, even just meeting the people from your town or neighboring town, uh, it's such a rewarding experience. And like I said, one of the things I love about Free Comic Book Day, and I will tell the whole world this, okay? Unlike a convention where you go to convention and it's primarily geared for the nerds in us, the comic fans and whatever, okay? Free Comic Book Day brings in parents. It brings in parents and grandparents.
Yeah.
That's
I can see that. At least it does there. I have never been to the one in Columbia. I have never been to either. There's 2 shops in Columbia, and I haven't done Free Comic Book Day for either one. I have kind of an aversion to it because I'm afraid I'll get caught up in the local fan stuff. And the last time I did that, it was not a good experience. It turned out there was a lot of politics to play with, so I'm a little leery of getting involved with it again. But you keep talking about how much fun it is. I may just have to break down that little wall and go give it a shot next year and see what's going on. But yeah, that's what keeps me from doing it, is that I really don't want to get caught up in the egos that some fandom gets into. You got one guy who wants to control everything, or he wants you to do everything and tries to push it all off on you. And either one of those extremes I'm not real nuts about. But I think I'm going to have to give in and give it a shot next year.
Well,
Start bugging me early, and I'll go.
I will. About 3 days later, after this was all done, again, and like I was saying earlier, I'm so happy I've got nothing in June. All right. Now, I mean, I say that. The only thing happening in June is yours truly is going back to New England. Valerie and I are going back to visit my mom and family and friends. So it's a vacation time for me, whatever. And no comics related events until May sometime. So I mean, not May, June, July. July.
Wait a minute. We've got one in August, right?
No, I'm doing July as well. I've got something going in July.
Okay. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay, nothing in May and nothing in June.
May's wrapped up. June's
just
clear.
Understood what you were saying.
Yeah, no. Then come July, and I'm back on the thread.
There it is. Yeah, you're at it again.
So that being the case, again, about 3 days after Free Comic Book Day, I
Yeah.
get together with my two buddies here in town, James and Todd. And you've met Todd several times. He is
Right.
my official protege. That's what I have to call him. We've made an agreement a long
Okay.
time.
All
Okay.
right.
Okay, so we get together at a local Starbucks, and so obviously, thing on our mind was, the con. How did everybody do and whatever? And Todd goes, he goes, I'm watching your table from where he was at the corner. You could see, right? He says it never stops. He says I never once saw nothing. There's people in front of your table all the time. So he said I turned around and this other artist looked at me and went. He says, "How's Ron doing?" And apparently in the past, that spot had not been really well for people because people had gone through the store and spent all their money, and people
Yeah,
complained about
they
being
were
at that
disappointed.
spot. And Todd turned around. Todd says, I've come to the realization it doesn't matter where you put Ron, he has a good day anyways. And you and I talk about this, okay? And, given the opportunity, I teach comic writing in college, but then I was teasing Todd and James about this statement. All right. I'd love nothing better. I do this in my course in comic writing every now and then. I spend a little time on con etiquette and what
Yes.
to do and what not to do at cons.
Thank you.
Yeah, right. Polite, courtesy. And if people don't buy anything, so bloody what? All right. Have a good time, enjoy them. And that's the persona people have learned from me in the 8 years they've been coming to this comic shop. Hopefully, Ron's a good guy. He does some great comics. Let's stop by and visit him. And I had a half a dozen people. Well, I wish I could buy this, but I'm all out of money now.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Cool.
You know what? I point them to August. I'll be at FOCO. If you really want this book, I'll be.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Save up your money between now and then.
And you know
Yeah.
what?
Yeah. That's what people don't realize is you don't always make all your sales right then. You're creating a relationship with the fans.
Amen.
That pay off later. Yeah.
Right.
That's yeah.
Well,
So
okay. So here, let me give you a classic example of that for real. All right. Comic Fest. Sunday Comic Fest. After I came back to my table, after Dave Ross gave me that wonderful book, I came back to my table, which Valerie had holding down the course, and a few people at the table talking to her. So I sat down, and this young man standing there, right? And he looks down and he sees one of the 4 or 5 copies of Boston Bombers I had left.
yeah.
Okay. So he picks it up, and we're talking, and he reads the back, and then he looks at me and goes, man, this sounds awesome. He goes, I said, well, I'm slowly dwindling. That's all I've got. That's the rest of my stock. So he goes, oh, okay. And then he goes, I work at Griffin's, I thought, 4 calls? He goes, yeah. I said, you going to be there next week for Free Comic Book Day? And I said, yes, I am. I said, I'll pick one up then. I said, done deal. So off he goes. Well,
hopefully you still have some.
4 copies, right? Here I am set up. The days going by, I sell 1, I sell 2, I sell 3. This is a true story, all right? So now it's maybe 4 o'clock in the afternoon, right? And this young lady comes running over me. In the meantime, I told you they had store clerks working the free comics, giving them out. And I had, they had changed. They'd changed shifts. Other people come taking their places and whatever. And I hadn't realized it, but one of the new clerks was the young man I'd seen in Denver.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm sitting there, and this young lady comes running over to me and goes, my boyfriend just sent me over here, and he wants Boston Bombers. And I just said, excuse me? And she points back to the clerk, and I looked over, and I recognized him, and he's waving away at me, right? 1 left. That's his card. Here it is. I autographed it for him, and he got it. So it harkens to what you said, all right? He didn't pick it up in Denver, but he didn't forget. And he showed up at the comic shop wanting to buy that book.
Exactly. Yep.
Hallelujah.
That's how it works.
Yeah. So there you go. That's pretty much my traveling tales and experience.
You've been a lot more active, and you've got a lot more active stuff going on than I do. Of course, I stay busy at the studio working on stuff. So yeah, and we'll talk about some of that here in a little bit if I remember this correctly, what you got on here. But so I guess we need to go on to our release since our last show.
That's it.
So you have, we'll give your voice a rest, and I'll do, and I'll do
Thank,
this one.
thank you
All
so
right.
much.
All right. Released since our last show, Barry Baskerville and the Buried Treasure. This is the sixth children book in the ongoing series of boy detective Barry Baskerville, written by Richard Kellogg, with lots of great color illustrations by Gary Cato. Barry is a boy who wants to grow up and be like his hero, Sherlock Holmes. The books are great for young children and teaches them the values of logical thinking. Gary does very colorful and fun illustrations for this book. I love getting the pictures in for these because he's got a really good sense of the youth of the characters that are involved. So this is one to look for if you've got young readers in your family and they're into Sherlock Holmes or into mysteries. This is a good book to get for them. It's on Amazon if you want to pick up a copy. So what's coming next? Actually, we have two novels which are headed for the home stretch. One we mentioned here last month, Ryder Housel's new Persona novel, Green Fleshed Fiends. Say that 5 times real fast. Artist Kevin Paul Broden is doing the interiors, and Chris Rodding has finished his stunning cover. So as soon as Kevin wraps the remaining illustrations, it gets assembled. Now, if I remember right, there was something holding it. What did he run into some problems, or because it's been a while since I've seen anything from him
No,
on this?
it's not so much. I think he's very busy with private
Okay,
commissions,
all right,
and he is, again. Remember, he's still the gentleman who is looking for work at animation studios in
okay,
California. Remember,
right,
he'd had
right,
several interviews with Disney, and
right.
I believe he had some scheduled interviews with DreamWorks and other companies as well.
Cool.
So he's
Okay, well,
he's
good
he's
luck to him.
juggling a couple balls, but we really wish Kevin a lot of luck with that.
Okay, well, on to the next one then. The other is Nancy Hansen's fifth Jezebel Johnston Pirate Queen novel. In this, Jezebel finds herself aboard a French ship cruising the West African coast, subtitled Don Suze. Rob is almost finished. That's me. Uh, with the interior illustrations, we are thrilled to announce that Pulp Factory Award-winning artist Ted Hammond is now doing the cover. As you'll recall from the start of the show, it was for Nancy's previous Jezebel Johnston entry, Morning Star, that Ted won the award. Knowing how happy he was with that win, we took a chance he'd be willing to sign on for a second cover in this series. Happily, he agreed, and we are anxious to see what beauty he'll turn in this time. So those two will most likely be our next releases. Once I finish doing the interiors for Nancy's book, I will start doing the interiors for the third Mark Justice's Dead Sheriff novel, Holster of Death, written by Fred Adams Jr. Artist Chris Dowd Rodding is now working on the cover. It is our hope to have this third volume available by the time we go to Pikeville Comic and Toy Con in Kentucky, as Mark's widow, Norma Kay, and many of his friends from Flatwoods are planning to come to the show and see us. Yeah, we need to have that ready by then. So having this new Dead Sheriff book out will be something truly special.
Right.
All right.
And hey, look, talking about the Pikeville show, I don't know if you saw this this past week or not on Facebook, but the lineup has been crazy. Anyways, they've got a phenomenal guest of lineup of guests like Jim Shooter, okay, Roland Mann,
Yeah.
and a bunch of people. This week, Mike Belcher announced, get ready, Larry Hama.
Okay.
So all you
Wow.
GI Joe fans out there, get your comics together and come on down. I met Larry for the first time ever last November at the Rocky Mountain Con, where he
Oh,
was a
okay.
guest. All right, and a hell of a nice guy. What a great guy,
I,
and a lot
I
of fun.
I've never met him myself, but I've heard lots of good things about him. But
Yeah,
both writing wise and how he is at conventions and how friendly he is. He
yep,
sounds like a really nice guy.
he is. Yeah, and hopefully, I'm according to I guess Roland Mann, the con, which is a weird thing, right? You and I both laugh about. It's a Friday and a Saturday. The con is
Yeah,
Friday and
that's
Saturday. It ends Saturday night. But I guess I don't know if Roland's been there before or whatever. But he said they have a hell of a guest dinner Saturday night to wrap it all up.
okay.
I am really hoping that's the case because that sounds like a lot of fun. Okay,
Yeah,
something to really look forward to. So we will see. All right. So
right,
anyway, all right. So now let's get on to we're saying what we're looking for, and that's in the past we've made it loud and clear that we are always looking for professional quality artists, all right, to handle the illustrations in our book. Whenever we also whereas, and I don't want to leave writers out on this, okay, because we do in fact like to look at new submissions from writers, all right, and I generally get maybe one a month these days, Rob, from somebody who's seen some of our books and liked them
right,
and would like to try their hand at writing new pulp. And let me encourage you to do that. All right, we've got several titles now that are the anthologies that are
right.
incomplete because we need stories to fill them. All right. Here's the thing: if you are at all interested, if you think you have the chops to write new pulp, then please send me a letter of inquiry. Don't be sending me a completed manuscript or a submission that's all done. It may just not be what we're looking for. So, as normal practice in this business, send me a letter. Just drop me a short email, airship27 at comcast.com. All right. And just basically say, hey, Ron, I like the Airship 27 books. I've read them. I'm a writer. This is the kind of stuff I do. And I'll take it from there. I will. I will, maybe most likely say, have you had anything done? Can I see a few pages or whatever? But first, the letter of inquiry. And by all means, I am trying to be encouraging here because we do have several books that have been languishing a little longer than they
Yeah,
should. And I'm kind of hoping that we can fill them up and get them into production as fast as possible. And news on both those fronts, if I can. Um, just today, I finally signed our fourth artist on the new Bass Reeves Frontier Marshall, and
cool.
that's Derek Ferguson.
Great, great, excellent.
I am psyched. I am totally psyched. Um, I had gone to him a couple days ago, and as it stands right now, we've got Mel Odom, who, by the way, and I want to congratulate Mel publicly. Mel just received his master's degree in fiction writing.
Excellent.
Just
Congratulations. Wow.
that is an amazing achievement, and bravo, Mel. There is a a friend or family took a short video. It's available online. Go to his Facebook page, and it shows him cap and gown, getting his master's. That's just amazing. He is easily one of the finest writers out there. He's been writing
Yes.
professionally for the last 30, maybe 40 years. All right, and now to say he's got a master's in fiction writing, it's just brilliant. Way to go. And Mel is one of those guys that when we started, he's been in every issue of Bass Reeves, every volume,
Yes.
and has
Yep.
basically told me as long as we keep doing them, he'll keep giving us stories. So we've got Mel. Terry Alexander is coming back. Uh, that was a pleasant surprise to me because, again, trying to fill the
Excellent.
book, I went to Terry, who'd given us a story, again, like Mel, for volume 3. And I said, hey, Terry, would you have another Bass Reef story? And he got back to me. He goes, I've already started writing one, Ron. So
Well,
either
he's a
he had his
character.
crystal ball out or something. But so here we go. I've written one, all right, which is actually my second Bass Reeves story. I had done one called The Lawman for a pro se production book that came out a few years back called Black Pulp.
Right.
And it was called The Lawman, and it was my first ever Bass Reeves story, which basically, my way of introducing him to, the public out there. So I wanted to get into the actual series that we're doing. I wrote a story called The Hard Ride. So now there's the three of us. We needed one more to fill the slot. I write Derek because Derek has done several, in I think volume 1 and 2, and
Yep.
said,
Yep.
I said, is there any chance you could saddle up again and give us another Bass Reeves book, because he does westerns extremely well for a kid brought up in Brooklyn. Believe me, all right, he has a flair for westerns. So
Yeah.
the following day, Derek drops him back a line and goes, "All right." So he goes, When do you need it?" And I paused, considering our summer with all the things that you and I are doing, where we're going. I got back to him and said, "How's the 1st of September sound?"
Okay. Yeah.
Wrap up something. Let's do what we have to do. Don't pressure the guy, because I know he's got he's got his own Patreon page, Rob, and he
Oh.
keeps that okay. And he does chapters on new Dylan stories for the
Oh,
people who
okay.
support. And word to you, loyal airman, if you aren't familiar with Dylan, then you're missing out on one of the greatest new pulp characters in print today. Go out and Google Dylan, and you're in for some good reading. But I said 1st of September. That afternoon, Derek got back to me and said, "I can do that. I'm on board." So there you go. Bass Reeves Volume 4 is complete. We get Derek's story in September. Rob does the interiors for those books. And I'm hoping, by early winter, we'll have the book ready to go and complete the pledge that I wanted, which was a new Bass Reeves every single year.
Yeah.
Which is, hey, we do 2 Sherlock Holmes. I really wanted to do Bass Reeves every year. And, that's a personal thing between you and me, as far as this gentleman and his history, and to continue to keep the press on, all right, until somebody up in La La Land wakes up and says, "Hey, we got to do a movie about this guy," and give him
Yeah.
the
Movie
he
or
really.
TV show or something.
So, okay. So now the other thing I want to talk about, and it's what's coming down the pike. What kind of books do we have in the pipeline heading our way? Bulldog Drummond 2 is in production. As you know, you've been working with Howard Simpson, the interior
Right.
illustrator for that series. So that's good news. I I'm hoping we're going to get out another Brother Bones book by the end of the year. And the news with that is, I am not going to write the whole thing. Hey! Somebody had suggested to me, after Volume 4, City of Lost Souls, had been released 2 years ago now, that one of the funds of that series was all the supporting characters. And
Right.
arguably, you could probably do a collection, an anthology, just featuring those characters and make it fly. So I like the idea. It rang in my head a la like Tales of Cape Noir. And the more I thought about it, I put feelers out. And sure enough, Drew Myers, one of the co-editors of the role-playing game,
Right.
Ron Fortier's Cape Noir from Scalcrow Games, had written a Lieutenant Dan Rain short story for Legends of Pulp Fiction. So Drew
Yes.
got a hold of me and said, "Could I write a Dan Rain story for this new book?" I love the idea. I said, "Go for it." So, boom, there you go. He's locked into doing that. Then Fred Adams, our writing machine himself, gets a hold of me, and not only wanted to, he's finished it. Fred Adams wrote a Harry Beast story, which is
I remember Tim talking about that at Pulp Fest. Yeah. Or
it's
at Windy
it,
City. Yeah.
It's insane. Okay. And if you don't know who Harry Beast is, he's the gorilla with the human mobster's brain, the mobster with the gorilla body. Oh, crazy stuff. And then at Pulp Fest, because my thought being, as the book is shaping up, my thought being was we do 3 new stories by 3 different writers playing in the Cape Noir sandbox, and then I would actually come in at the end and write a brand new Brother Bones story, which hopefully I could somehow or other tie up some of the plot elements from each of the 3 stories and keep this volume as a part of the entire series. So that arguably, my thought is, when it's ready, we will be calling it Brother Bones Volume 4, Tales of Cape Noir.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
And then we'll hit with those 3 stories. Well, I needed one more story, and who shows up at Pulp Fest? Not Pulp Fest, Windy City.
Windy City. We keep calling it Pulp Fest, but because it's coming up.
It is coming up.
We
And
wish we could go.
if you live anywhere
Yeah,
near
but
Pittsburgh, go to Pulp Fest, all right, and
Yeah.
tell them that Rob and Ron sent you. Hey,
Yes.
who shows up at Windy City and buys a copy in front of me of Brother Bones, City of Lost Souls, but Andy Fix?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I went, he goes, I love these. So then I went, oh, would you like to write one? And he goes, what? And I explained the anthology
Yeah.
things.
I was
He's a happy camper. He yesterday, finally, yesterday he sent me a plot for a Sister Blood story.
Ooh.
The vampire. Okay.
Ooh, that could be fun.
Yeah. And the plot is gorgeous, and it plays to the strengths of the series. Andy has read all the books. He knows Cape Noir inside out. He knows the supporting characters, as do all three of these writers. So it's a different. Each story is going to have a really different take and focus again, as we said, on different parts of what this world is all about. And so I'm hoping that Brother Bones fans are going to be excited. And finally, I given you a break, Rob, because the guy who did the cover for City of Lost Souls is artist Michael Stribling.
Yeah.
And that cover was absolutely gorgeous.
Yes.
So what I did was I wrote Michael now going on a little over a month ago, and I basically said, hey, Michael, I absolutely love your work. I think it's phenomenal. I'm not schmoozing you or anything else like that. I've seen his illustrations, Rob, never mind the cover work as well. So I said, we're doing a really unique book. And I explained the whole concept behind Tales of Cape Noir. I said, now my initial thought was I wanted to see if you'd like to come back and do the cover for this book. And I says, and if what I'm about to add to all this doesn't meet with your approval, I would still very much like you to do the cover. But here's the thing. Is there any way you might consider doing the interior illustrations? Okay. So Michael gets back to me about a week later, because he waited, pros and cons. And he got back to me, Rob, and he's been a busy camper himself, and his son just started going to school. I'm trying to think, it's one of the military academies. So they've been rather busy, the family, whatever, and he's got commissions of his own. He works as a commercial artist, but he liked the idea. So he got back to me and said, well, look, he says, if you're open with deadlines, if there's no deadlines, if I have time to do this at my own pace, I immediately wrote back and I said, let's do this. I says, because honestly, I says, I don't even have the stories yet. Okay, except for one, the Harry B story by Fred Adams. So why don't we do this? I've edited it. I'm going to send you Fred's story. And I explained the process of how, we're going to need 3 illustrations, where they need to go, how he finds those scenes.
Right.
Said, and sit on it. Do what you need. Work it into whatever your schedule is, how your schedule is. And I said, the fact that I don't even have the other stories, including one I'm going to have to write down the line, I said, there is no rush here whatsoever. I said, I'm going to bet dollars to donuts that you will finish those 3 illustrations and get them back to me before I even see the second story come in.
No doubt. Yeah.
Right.
That's probably how it'll work. Yep.
That being the case, he got back to me. He goes, send the story. So there you go. All right. He has got Fred Adams' story. And so Michael Stribling, by the time this whole project comes together, will be doing all the art. He'll be doing the illustration side and the cover.
And the cover. Okay,
and
cool. Cool.
Yeah. He does collages. And considering what this book was going to be, it was one of those cases where I wanted an image to be a collage image. I want to see Sister Blood. I want to see Lieutenant Rains. I want to see Harry Beast, and of course Bones. All right, and he's very strong in that composition feel. So there you go, loyal airmen. Those are some of the titles that hopefully you can see coming towards the rest of 2019. Not to exclude maybe a new Sherlock Holmes book like Volume 14. Yeah, we shall see. Yeah.
Oh.
And
I know we've got Ian Watson's story in.
We've got Ian Watson's story in for 15 and 16 too.
Yeah.
Oh my God. But anyways, yeah. But I was really, really happy. We've gotten a new young writer, and again, let's harken back to what we're talking about here in the podcast. Several months, at the start of the year, a gentleman named Jonathan Casey wrote to me and sent me some samples of his work after a letter of inquiry. He did the right thing, and so we talked, and he wanted to write a Sherlock Holmes story. And he did, and actually completed volume 15. So hey, there you go. All right, and he is that good a writer, Rob, where I didn't miss a beat in telling him about the Challenger Chronicles. And right now, Casey is actually reading some of the early, like the Lost World and Doyle's other stories about
Okay.
George Challenger. So I'm kind of hoping we've already got Gordon Demowski's story and Bible in place, which I will then share with Jonathan if he agrees to do a Challenger story, and that'll be 50% of that title. So
Cool.
slow
Yeah,
but surely.
yeah, I'd be interested in seeing that one. I'm not that familiar with the character of Professor Challenger, so I'm kind of looking forward to seeing this one. Whether I illustrate it or not, I may actually read that read this particular one. I can't read all of our books. That's all I'd be doing. But I usually read the ones that I illustrate. But looking forward to that one.
Okay, so here we go. That's pretty much it for what I have. And basically, the last thing we had on the agenda was mark your calendar because we were talking about the Pikesville convention in Kentucky. So real quick, I just want to throw out the dates for our loyal listeners one more time. That's August 2nd and the 3rd. Okay. And
Okay.
again, right now they have something like a dozen artists, writers, guests. I did not realize how big this show was when they first approached us, but apparently it's
I
big.
just thought it was an itty bitty show we were going to go to, and then I start seeing. Wait a minute, they've got him. They got Jim Shooter. They got
Yeah,
they got
yeah.
Larry
When you
Hama.
get Jim
They've got
Shooter, when you get Jim Shooter,
wow,
it's no little show.
man,
All right,
man, man, man.
all
So
right.
anyway,
Do you have anything at all else? Blah,
do
that
I? Yes, I got an email from Ian Watson. He had ordered. He got his royalty check, or I got his royalty check, and then I usually send it to him via PayPal. But this time he wanted me to get some books for him. Well, there's a nice new feature with since we went to Kindle, doing all the books, the print on demand. They actually have a printing plant in different countries, so I could order directly from the UK plant to have them sent to him. So I order them, and a week later he's got them. So he's stunned. But he actually had a couple of questions for us, and one of them was, the first one was, maybe it's time to do a Robin Hood compilation. Robin Hood, his 4-issue series. Maybe do that as a compilation, like we did the Birth of a Buccaneer or Nancy
an
Hill's
omnibus
Pirates,
edition.
an
Yeah,
omnibus edition.
yeah,
Yeah, he called it a compilation,
yeah,
but it's an
yeah,
omnibus or a
yeah.
compilation, either one of those titles. And I went, yeah, that's. I'll take a look at that and see what it might take for me to do that. And then another one he threw out there was, is it time for us to do an omnibus of the Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, first few issues? First few. I don't know if we. That's a question. I'm not sure. I'm that we want to go that
My
way.
concern,
We still sell the singles pretty well.
we sell all the singles, both in Kindle, all right, and
Yeah,
you and I
yeah,
go to cons, and we have issues 1, 2, 3, 4, and they go off the table. All right,
yeah.
it's one of those series where this is the case where it would just become an accounting nightmare more than anything else for me, because ultimately, if you were going to do omnibuses of Sherlock Holmes, then it's a whole bunch of different writers. Okay,
Yeah, that's true.
we've set up our pay schedule to the anthology format of what
You,
each percentage is. Okay,
yeah, you
we
have to
start
do it
putting three
differently.
books, 4 books together, where this writer did 3 stories, this writer did 1 story.
Oh, yeah, I can see. Okay.
I have to hire an accountant. No thanks. All right. It's just, and you know what, Ian? The bottom line with all this is we do have Kindle only uh, coll- c- compilations of Ian's work. We've done two
Right.
of them, and
Yeah.
they sell like crazy. And I've no
They still
problem
do
to
very well. Yeah. He got a
continue.
nice little check.
He got a whopping nice check, and
Yeah.
you know what? Somebody was talking to me very recently, Rob, about business practices, and it's a local guy here in town who's worked in business all his life, and was talking to me about how there's a thing called the S curve, supposedly, where if you're in any kind of a niche market and your sales continue to increase on a yearly basis, all right, X number of percentages, like 10 or 20% a year, all right, you just have those kind of increases. Supposedly, after 5 years, if it's remained steady, then what will happen is the percentage of increases exponentially starts growing another 20%, so that the next year you're going to make 40%.
Oh,
Okay. And considering the royalty check that you and I, the checks that you and I sent out at the end of April this year, which was mind-boggling.
record,
It
record
it
amount, record royalties. We got
right.
this.
It
I
literally it
think that, and part of that is that it's the first quarter of the year always includes sales from the Christmas
oh I totally
Christmas
get
season.
that.
So
But
that's always our biggest one. But this was still a record over previous years. So
right,
it is going up. And
that's what I'm
the
saying.
funny thing is, I keep reading how uh, you know physical book sales have kind of plateaued, and so have Kindles. They go,
Right,
and
right.
I'm going, but I'm not seeing that.
We're
I'm
not
not,
seeing it. We're not seeing it.
it's not a it's not
No,
a
right. But again,
zoom up.
it
It's a
obvious.
steady climb.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I'm getting at. So fingers crossed. I think our particular market and this, you know what, for all you guys listening, all you loyal airmen, okay, thank you so much, because what we're actually talking
Yeah.
about is what you people are doing. Okay, not only are you buying our books or have been buying our books and continue to do that, but you are telling other people about our books. And I'm seeing that happen more and more now, especially on Facebook. I'm seeing people, oh, so and so told me about Airship 27 titles, and oh, so and so told me you had this series, and blah blah blah. So heartfelt thanks. Okay, the success that Rob and I have in all our writers and artists is due entirely to you. And we will never, ever take you for granted. Let me tell you, all right? The fun why we go to conventions is to thank you, to be able to be out there in the public, to shake your hands and say thank you. We love what we do. We have a blast. And again, Rob, we've said it several times on this show, and I'll continue to repeat it. Our pledge to you is that we are going to make the best books possible. That not only are you going to buy, read, and enjoy, but you're going to be damn proud to put them up in your library and show them off to your friends.
Yep. We do our best to get the best artists that we can, and I bust my rear end trying to make sure that they are professional looking books as far as how they're printed. And I'm still working on making the Kindle books look great. That they're a excuse me, they're a pain in the ass. Kindle books are. I mean, after you've formed them to print for print books, then converting that over to a Kindle, especially the illustrations, they gave me fits for quite a while. But I am getting better at it. But there's still stuff I need to learn on that, and because the sales on those are becoming a bigger portion of our income, I'm really going to have to sit down and figure out the and fine tune it even more. The books, I pretty much the print books, I pretty much got how that all works and how those will go together. But the Kindles are a pain in the rear end to put together. But we're doing them, and they're still selling even though they've got little flaws. They still do very well for us. So I'm gonna do my best to get better and better at that as we go along.
All right. Hold us to it. Hold us to it.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
Airman. And hey, look,
correct.
my last little item, which I really, you just basically gave me an eye-opening bit of information. Okay.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, it was something I suspected but wasn't sure of, and you just made that abundantly clear to me. Okay, in this we have publishers or printers in multiple countries. All right.
Yes.
Now I'm sure you're familiar with the fact that I recently had my one and only Sherlock Holmes story published by an Australian publisher. I'd written it several years ago. It's an anthology called Sherlock Holmes and Doctor Was Not. It was put together by Christopher Seguera from Australia. And basically, the conceit of the anthology is that they 12 or 13 stories dealing with a Sherlock Holmes whose sidekick is not Dr. Watson, but another doctor. Classic, the most biggest example of all in the book is comic writer Denny O'Neil has Sherlock Holmes teaming up in Tombstone with Doc Holliday.
Oh.
Okay, so here we go.
That sounds like fun.
Okay, so 2 weeks ago. Now, the books are going to be delayed for multiple reasons in around the world, and Canada and U.S. They will not be out until mid-July. But all of us were sent an initial comp copy to, again, like a galley, to proof one more time. All right, which we did. I sat down over a period of a week and read all the stories, and I am so proud to be a part of this. And again, there's a reason why I have a Sherlock Holmes story in there. That'll get explained as time goes on. But the point is, Chris got back to me last week and said, so how would you like to get paid, Ron? And I immediately fired back and said, well, Chris, rather than send me cash, I said, I'd much prefer to get paid in copies, because I can take them to cons and do extremely well, and it'd be really a big thing for me to have my own Sherlock Holmes story in a book at my on my table.
Yeah.
All right, so Chris gets back to me. So okay, so I talked to the publisher. Then he gets back to me and goes, okay, you're getting 47 books. And I'm like, oh my God, we're talking Australia now. You got this, Australia. So the next day, Chris messages me again on Facebook and goes, oh, just to let you know, the books are printed. You should have them in a few days from UPS. And I went, huh? I got those books in 6 days, Rob. All right. They were hernia-inducing boxes, let me tell you. All right. And before anything else, ta-da! Okay.
Nice.
All right. They're really well done. They're really well put together. And this one's for you. Okay. I put one aside for you. So you are finally going to get to read my Sherlock Holmes story. And for all you other loyal airmen out there who might be interested in a copy of Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Was Not, from yours truly, autographed and whatever, drop me a line. I've already had several people on Facebook hit me up because they won't be seeing me at conventions or whatever, and said, well, can I send you a check? Would you autograph it and mail it to me? And yes, I will. I've set a price for the books, and obviously shipping and handling from the U.S. Post Office, as that turns out. But if anybody would like a copy of the book directly from me, give me a holler. I'm only too glad to send you one. So there you go.
Cool. Yes,
right.
yes.
Okay.
Mine will be in the mail soon. Yay.
Yes. And I am really anxious to hear your feedback on this, okay? Your thoughts.
That means I actually have to read it.
What are we gonna do? You poor bastard. Jeez, what are we gonna do? All right, hey, look, it's time for Ron's.
Oh,
here we go. All right. All right. Pierre, the French businessman, was having a clandestine affair with his beautiful Italian secretary Lola, until one night she came and met him at their secret hideaway apartment crying, I'm pregnant. Well, of course, Pierre didn't want his wife to find out, or the rest of the business community. So he immediately told Lola, look, he says, I'm not leaving my wife. It'll ruin my business. But he says, I'm not heartless. You go back to Italy. I'm going to give you a big check right now. You go back to Italy, go to your family. When you have the baby, I will take care of the baby financially till that baby is 18 years old. You have my word, that baby will have the best of everything. So now Lola's a little more relieved and understanding. And she says, but how will you know when I have the baby? Pierre thinks, and all right, we have to do this on the sly. So here's the thing. When you have the baby, you send me a postcard, all right? And on it, you write spaghetti. He said, I'll understand what that means, spaghetti. I'll understand you've had the baby. I'll call my banker, and he'll send the funds. And from that point on, we'll take care of the baby and you. All right, Lola says. So, boy, disaster averted. Pierre goes back to work and pretty much forgets about it. Now, 9 months go by. Pierre comes home for one day, and Celeste, his wife, hugs him in the door and says, oh, by the way, the mailman just came, and you have a very strange postcard waiting for you on the table. So Pierre goes over, and he picks up the postcard, and he reads it, and proceeds to pass out on the kitchen floor. Celeste goes running over, reaches down and picks up the postcard, and she reads, spaghetti, spaghetti, spaghetti. 2 with meatballs, 1 without.
Somehow I knew meatballs would be in there, but that's great. Oh, that's bad. I can see why Valerie gave you that bad look. Oh my. And you guys ask for this. You guys out there in the audience, you ask for these jokes.
Dan sent, I told Dan in a letter, I says, when are you guys, no, excuse me, Micah Harris. Micah Harris says, so he's like, he says, I said, when are you guys going to send us some jokes? Come on, send us some jokes. He goes, are you kidding? You and Rob have classic stinkers. He says, I look forward to them every month. So there you go, Loyal Airman. And that's it. You've just given up another valuable hour and a few minutes of your life.
Never get it back.
But hey, you know what? We're going to sign off. We want to thank you again for spending this hour with us as ever. And there goes the airship floating by. Oh, yes. Hey, all the sophisticated visual aids that we have. Just an amazing show. Hey, special thanks also to Brant Fowler, Sparky himself, who are on our anniversary 50th episode.
Round of applause.
Brant inserted some still pictures at certain points throughout the video hour. So, yeah. So again, you'll catch us on YouTube. That's where we're going to be from now on, as well as audio for those of you who like to listen in while you're working. And that's pretty much it, Rob. I've got nothing. You want to say good night, and we'll wrap it up.
I think we're done. This is Chief Engineer Rob Davis signing off.
And as ever, Captain Ron says, down ship.
This has been a Gonzo Goose production.